Welcome to another texture tutorial. This is the second episode of drawing fur texture, and I'm going to draw a fox in this video. As mentioned before, it's essential to use a reference photo. This will help you study the fur's texture, layers, and direction of growth, and how it flows. Reference photos allow you to observe the subtle variations in the fur and how it flows naturally, and see the layers and directions of fur. So before you start drawing, find a reference photo to be able to see the layers, the direction of hair, and all the little details that make fur look realistic. So first you need to draw what you see, not what you think or know. I'm starting the base layer of my drawing with an HB pencil. I'm using light strokes in direction the fur grows. That's the basic idea behind starting a fur drawing. I can add layers later to make the fur look deeper and more detailed. But right now I just want to make sure I'm drawing the hairs in the right direction. So basically what I'm doing is just doing some doodles to figure out where I want the fur to be thicker or thinner, where I want the volumes to be, and where the shadows and highlights will be. That's what the first layer is for, to figure out which way the hairs should go and to find the volumes. It's easier to fix mistakes if you start out lightly, which is why using layers is so helpful. And also that's why I'm using an HB pencil here. When I draw animal fur, I always work in layers because real fur is made up of layers too. So if you don't work in layers, your fur will end up looking flat instead of having a 3D effect. That's why I'm building up layers, starting with a light one and then adding more layers to create depth. So let's draw the strokes and fill the areas with a fluffy texture. Use the HB pencil to draw the fur's basic shape on the places which have darker hair color or shadow areas. And you can draw lighter strokes to fill the lighter areas. You might want to fix it later, so it's better to draw it lightly at this stage. So tilt your pencil and fill the fur sketch shape with gray. Don't press too hard to achieve a uniform effect. You can simulate the flow of the fur drawing with your strokes, but it's not necessary because we can do it later in the next steps. The corners of the ears must be darker naturally, so I'll give it a dark strand on the edges. Always draw the hairs in the direction they grow. This means following the bone structure of the animal. These two things are super important for making your fur look realistic. If you draw the fur the wrong way, it'll look weird. And if you don't follow the bone structure, your drawing will look flat. Soft fur doesn't have so many clear shadows because light easily gets through it. Short fur is based on the same rules as long fur. After all, it doesn't matter how long the fur is, but how long it is in relation to the surface it lies on. The smaller the surface, the more bending and the more clumps there are. The bigger it is, the more uniform the hair. Again, tilt your pencil slightly and draw short hair in the middle of the nose. Don't draw in rows, but rather go across and back for a less artificial effect. When I draw short fur, I draw each individual hair. It's time consuming, but it's worth it to make it look realistic. Shorter hair strands mostly can be found near the nose, eyes, and probably the mouth of the animal. So keep this in mind that you also need to know where to put these short hair and where to draw long hair. Don't be afraid to have tiny gaps between the hairs. You want them to stand out individually. If you try to fill in every single space, you won't get that realistic texture. Once the first layer is done, I sharpen my HB pencil and use a bit more pressure to create a softer look. Press harder near the edge to make the shadow gradually darker to work the fur texture drawing. I go over the drawing with more pressure and darken some areas. I filled in some gaps that were too bold and defined some shadows. This is the start of creating that 3D effect. Take the HB pencil again and draw side hair. Be gentle when you're doing the fur texture drawing. Take the eraser to add some highlights to the illuminated side. If you have a kneaded eraser, you can actually draw some hair with it. If not, a normal eraser will do. Use the same pencil if you want to add details to the lower part, but avoid any bigger shadows here. This part should be smooth and soft, fluffy texture. Draw single loose hairs on the sides for a fluffier effect. Don't press too hard. Soft fur doesn't have so many clear shadows. Pay attention to any flyovers, rounds, or overlapping areas to capture the realistic details. Go back to the top and add the splitting at the ends of the clumps. Remember to draw them using shadows only. I make sure there are some little hairs sticking out, but I still follow the shape and draw the hairs in the right direction. Take the 2B pencil and use the same technique to shade the side of the tail, around the eyes, and on the forehead of the fox. When learning to draw fluffy hair, a blending stump or even a cotton swab are useful. Use it to gently blend the clumps, drawing over the fur according to its flow. In my reference photo, the camera is zoomed in on the face of the subject, so I can obviously see that the tail and some areas of the neck and maybe the chest are kind of blurry. So to achieve this blurry effect, I can increase the contrast to show the face of the fox more blunt and make it pop more. Another trick that works really well for having a blurry effect is to have softer strokes which are probably blended. So it's the best time to use a blending stump for this. After this, I can emphasize more on the head of the subject, making some areas even darker, define the edges and borders even more, adding some sharper strokes to make these sections look like if they are zoomed on by the camera. Tilt your pencil and turn some of the hair into sharp clumps. We need to draw the shadows between clumps to make fur pop. There are certain signs you can use as a base, but you don't need to try it yourself to understand how to draw a fur clump. Practice on the side for a moment if you're not sure how to do it. The greater the angle, the shorter and wider the shadows could be. Opening the angle can help make the fluffy texture more convincing. If you draw any sharp thin lines, your eyes would mistake them for some stray hair, which would break the fluffy texture effect. When drawing hair, clumps are easy to achieve, but it's not normal for a smooth surface to be so clumped. Draw some bigger, wider shadows in the lower area to create waves. I mean smooth groups of clumps. Use the same pencil to accentuate the little hairs on the side. For the final layer, I always use my 6B graphite pencil. For longer furs, use longer strokes. It's better to divide the fur into shapes or clumps instead of drawing every hair individually. Otherwise, your fur might end up looking wiry. You can do this for short hairs, but not for long hairs or clumps of the hair. Fur is made of hairs that lie one upon another, creating a smooth surface. The lighter the hairs, the easier they get clumped. We can see everything because of the contrast between light and shadow. The bigger the clumps, the bigger the shadow between them. When you draw fur by drawing individual hairs, what you're really drawing is the skin illuminated from below with hairs blocking the light. Take a break and then look at your drawing once again from a distance. Turn it upside down, see it in a mirror, and maybe take a photo to get a different perspective. If you notice something you'd like to change, this is the time to do it. Don't be tempted to add more contrast. The darker the shadows, the harder the clumps will look. So don't overdo it. Take the HB pencil or a mechanical pencil and use it to complete the shadows. Now you know how to draw fluffy hair, both short and long. As you can see, fur isn't so hard to draw once you know the rules. You can use these methods to draw all kinds of fur now. And that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments. And like always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you for the next video.